Hi, I'm Mike Buzzelli, and recently I was joined by a very talented group of comedy writers and performers to discuss the process of writing for stage, screen, and publication. The event was moderated by Brian Edward of Berg Vivant, and the panel included Gab Bonesso and Krish Mohan, stand-up comedians, Heidi Nagle, a sketch comedian, and James FitzGerald, a local actor. This fun event was hosted by the 3rd Street Gallery, and we raised money for the Boys and Girls Club of Carnegie. Here's an episode from our panel. Hi, welcome everyone. Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm like still projecting, but still kind of in the camera. I mean, in the microphone. Welcome to the Art of Comedy. I just want to say a few words and say thank you for all coming. And also, where'd he go? Phil? Phil? Didn't I say stick around because I was going to introduce you? Well, come over here for a second. That's Phil, everyone! Phil is the owner of this gallery, and the 3rd Street Gallery, which is where you are, which is 3rd Street and 3rd Avenue. And he did all of the work on the walls here. Yeah. All of it. So if you're interested in the art, find him. Apparently he's not even easy to find in his own gallery. But find him and we'll talk art. But for now, we're going to talk the art of comedy. And I wanted to introduce my moderator, who I assume is going to introduce everyone else. This is Mr. Brian Edward. Okay. I don't know that one. Should I clap? So yes, host of Berg Vivant and our moderator here today. And I'm going to just hand it over to you.
Get ready to be moderated.
Okay, we're ready, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. What could be funnier than an 11 a.m. Saturday panel discussion on the art of comedy? I am honored to be in such good, funny company, and I'd like to introduce these very funny, talented folks to you. We'll start from my left with Mr. James FitzGerald. Yes. Jim is a Pittsburgh-based actor, teacher, and writer. He is a company member of Picked Classic Theater and has performed at the Public, Quantum Theater, City Theater, and many other venues about town. He has also performed 16 seasons at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, as well as most all of the Chicago theaters, including Second City. He has 2 Joseph Jefferson Awards, a Jeff Citation. Is that correct? A Jeff Citation? Is that a good thing? No turn. Okay. And Chicago's After Dark Award. We'll talk about that. As the author of 2 for the Show. Mr. FitzGerald is also the author of several vaudeville cabarets performed at Second City, Milwaukee Rep, and the renowned Dudley Riggs, as well as many other venues. He is the author of Every Christmas Story Ever Told, and then some, which has had over 300 productions around the country. And he was also Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Performer of the Year in 2016. James FitzGerald.
It's a living.
Heidi Nagle is the founding We'll give a front-end applause and a back-end applause. I think that's like a good introduction. They live for applause and laughter. Heidi Nagle is the founding co-artistic director of the sketch comedy troupe, the Harvey Wallbangers, voted Pittsburgh City Paper's 2nd best local comedy troupe 2 years in a row. The Harvey Wallbangers have been creating original full-length sketch comedy productions for the past 5 years and have performed at Carnegie Stage, Arcade Comedy Theater, and Techo. Recently, the Wallbangers have become the hosts of Row House Cinema's recurring Coconut Night, a shadow-cast quote-along to the comedy classic Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Taking her love of sketch comedy one step further, in 2016, Heidi wrote and performed in her original one-woman sketch comedy show, This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, which was fortuitously remounted in 2017 with 92% new material. In addition to sketch, Heidi has frequented the Pittsburgh Moth Story Slam stage as both a storyteller and substitute host. She graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with dual bachelor's degrees in theater arts and communications and has been living and working in Pittsburgh ever since. She is the shared company manager of Squonk Opera and Corning Works, production stage manager for Off the Wall and St. Vincent Summer Theater, and house manager at the New Hazlet Theater. She also loves to talk about whiskey and rebellion as a tour guide at Wiggle Whiskey. Heidi Nagle. Next, meet Gab Bonesso. She is a Pittsburgh comedy veteran who pioneered the city's alternative comedy scene. In 2004, after graduating from Duquesne University, Gab created underground comedy rooms at Club Cafe and Brillo Box as an alternative for comics who didn't fit into the traditional club scene. She was named Best Comedian in Pittsburgh by Pittsburgh City Paper in 2009 and 2017, and by Pittsburgh Magazine in 2010. She has appeared at the Seattle Sketch Comedy Festival, the New York City Underground Comedy Festival, the Pittsburgh Comedy Festival, and the Baltimore Comedy Festival. She has featured for comedy headliners such as Richard Lewis, Jen Kirkman, Brian Posehn, John Hogman, Dan Levy, Christian Finnegan, Tommy Chong, and more. Gab has toured the continental US and Canada while sponsored by American Eagle Outfitters from 2011 to 2013, starring in videos and doing live corporate stand-up comedy at events. Gab is a weekly writer for Pittsburgh Current. She is also the co-creator and star of Gab Bonesso's Gab Squad, a live, interactive musical comedy program to address bullying in schools and raise awareness for mental health issues. Gab Squad has been featured in the San Francisco Guardian, CBS Radio TV, WQED, and PBS Television. Gab Squad has now reached over 500,000 students, teachers, and parents, and Gab has visited over 17 states, including Mexico, which is a country, spreading her message. Bonesso's performance style is best described in this excerpt from Pittsburgh Magazine. Gab has long danced on the border of comedy, theater, performance art, and general mayhem. Her style is so unique and her material so singular and specified to her life that branding it simple stand-up is off the mark. In performance, Bonesso is something else entirely, a whirlwind of humor, confession, and theatrical abandon. Gab Bonesso was the first comedian signed to Mizra Records, am I pronouncing that correctly? Her debut album, Everyone's Dead, a comedy album, is available now on all music downloading sites. Gab Bonesso. This guy, Michael Buzzelli. Is a stand-up comedian and a sit-down author. Even his bio's funny. As a comedian, he has performed all around the country, most notably the Ice House, the Comedy Store, and the Improv in Los Angeles. He has performed as a stand-up in Pittsburgh for several local charity events such as Cabaret for a Cause, the Glisson Awards, and Brewing Up a Cure. As a writer, Mike has published in a variety of websites, magazines, and newspapers. He is a theater and arts critic for Berg Vivant, Pittsburgh's online cultural talk magazine. Mr. Buzzelli is also a Moth Grand Slam storyteller and actor. His book, Below Average Genius, a collection of essays culled from his weekly humor column in the Observer Reporter, is available at Amazon.com. His new book, All I Want for Christmas, from Burroughs Publishing Group, goes on sale September 24th, 2019, and will be available on most platforms. Michael Buzzelli. Krish Mohan is the fellow to my left. He is a socially conscious Indian stand-up comedian and writer who regularly tours the United States. He performs at small theaters, bars, comedy clubs, colleges, DIY, and house venues. With his quirky attitude, charming personality, and intelligent humor, who wrote this? Krish captivates and engages audiences of all backgrounds, tackling hot-button topics like race, religion, war, immigration, while adding an optimistic philosophical and sociological twist. Krish has been featured on NPR radio stations in various states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and New York, and he has also performed sold-out shows at several fringe festivals, where he has been an audience favorite with his unique brand of comedy and social vigilantism that has been described as dangerous, perceptive, and never offensive. Krish also won the headliners like Stuart Huff, Redacted Tonight's Lee Camp, Harry Condabaloo, all right, Carmen Esposito, Dom Herrera, and many more. Mohan is also the gist of a weekly socio-political commentary web show, Forkful of Noodles, and the socio-political interview podcast, Taboo Table Talk, which includes the weekly news segment, The Dispatch. Krish Mohan, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's our time.
It's been swell, thanks for coming. I think what we'd like to do is have a conversation about this wild topic of comedy. But what I'd like to do is really ask each of you first how you got into this. And by this I mean whatever it is that constitutes you as a comedian. Gab, let's start with you. How did you get into this art form?
This crazy world called entertainment. Really easily, I was the youngest of 5 in an Italian family where everyone was competing for time at the dinner table. And so as young as 3, I had to have a shtick. And if I wanted to be heard. And so I was always competing with siblings who were 20 years older than me. And I always wanted to make my mom happy because she had PTSD and depression. And so I was like a clown, just to always make mama happy all the time. And you know, family dysfunction, right? I think that's why we all got into it, Brian. That would be my answer.
Now, do you feel that comedy was your way of dealing with that family dysfunction?
Oh, yeah, it was my family's language. Like, I don't think, my memory of childhood is always happy because it was always laughs and jokes and all that kind of stuff, but it was always deflecting the craziness that was happening at the core of my family. So my memories of childhood are wonderful, but it all centered around a lot of dysfunction, but we were always able to find the humor in everything.
Cool. Yeah. So, Mr. FitzGerald, way back when Thespis first stepped forward from the chorus line, and you were the guy that whispered, "You're on, buddy." What brought you to comedy in the first place?
Being an actor in Chicago, you know, you have to have many other jobs. So if you're not getting hired, the easiest way is to create your own work. So a buddy of mine who went through Second City, who was part of the touring company, we got together and started writing for ourselves. And that kind of took off from there. So learning about comedy as in stand-up is a different thing than performing in a play that's comedic, without getting too intellectual, because that's the death of comedy.
Don't worry, we plan on killing
Let's keep it real lowbrow, right, folks?
Learning about comedy, if anybody really wants to know anything about comedy, and I say this to actors all the time, watch Bugs Bunny from about 1940 to about 1951.
His best years.
Yes.
And that will teach you everything you need to know about comedy. Everything.
So
we could have just screamed that today. Yeah. I mean, as far as being intellectual, but it's kind of like, you know, the joke is not funny if you have to explain it.
Right.
I think is
So
the
ask me
right
the
way to put
secret.
it.
What's the secret of comedy?
Very good.
Ask me.
Krish,
What's the secret?
when did you jump into the art?
At age 16, when I was too dumb to know it was a bad idea. I started in high school because I was not popular, so I forced my friendship onto people by going to their lunch table and making them deal with me. And I had a lot of friends in bands. Derek Christek is the person that's responsible for me doing what I'm doing, because he was the one that told me that I should get into comedy and tell my funny stories about my mom. So for a talent show, and I was like, that's not funny. So I went home and I wrote 8 jokes on note cards, and then I went and auditioned. And my teacher, Alan Welding, who still comes to my comedy shows, which is super awesome. But he was the one that was like, hey, you're in, but you can't compete. Do you have 15 minutes of material? And I said yes, which was a lie. I had maybe 7. And then I tried to write more material, and then the last 5 minutes was just me going on stage, doing the Indian accent for about 4.5 minutes, and that's the only standing ovation I've ever received in 14 years of doing stand-up.
It was all downhill from there, huh?
Yeah, I'm the intellectual comic. So I regularly go on the road, and I'm like, let's talk about philosophy, and everybody's like, let's kill that guy. So that's my shtick now.
Very sad autobiography by all accounts. Yes, yeah, that should have been. Heidi, when did you first embrace comedy's churlish embrace?
My mom is a pretty funny lady, so I think as just growing up, we were always laughing, and she was always being really goofy, so it sort of was an easy transition for me. When I was younger, most girls my age were obsessed with, boys and fashion, and I was quoting Ace Ventura. So it just happened, and then I got to high school, and a group of friends and I sort of created some sketch comedy stuff at school, and it just kept going from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Buzzelli, I guess since being Barney Frank was already taken, you had to do something, right?
4 people got that joke.
He's not really in vogue anymore, is he? Yeah, tell us about your roots
As I
in
just
comedy.
told the Post-Gazette, so some of the people might have just read this
Yeah,
story, but
yeah.
I'm going to tell it again. I got into comedy through thrift. What happened was, I was a screenwriter, and I was living in Los Angeles, and I wrote this screenplay, and people read it and thought it was hilarious, but when I would go to explain it, I'd be like, and then this guy is in love with this girl. They'd be like, that's boring. What you're telling me is boring. I needed a new way to explain the story to people. So I looked, there was a pitch class for, in screenwriting, pitching is standing up in front of your producers and explaining your story. So I thought, I need to take this pitch class. The pitch class was $1,000. There was a comedy class that was $300, and I thought, I'll learn the same thing. So thrift brought me to comedy. And our final was a performance on a Los Angeles stage, the Comedy Store, back when Mitzi was still alive. And we performed there, and they just kept asking me back. So I kept doing it. And here I am today. Whoa! The slow climb downhill from a Los Angeles comedy club to an art gallery in Carnegie.
Now, you all do, I think, some slightly different forms of comedy, some very different forms of comedy. For example, Jim, yours is primarily rooted in theater and the stage. Krish, you get very social and political. Buzz, you write a lot. I'm going to throw this out to the group here. What constitutes success in your comedic field, and how do you achieve success in what you do?
I'm going to say laughter.
That's a good
It's a good barometer.
Yeah.
Good barometer.
I don't think my success is as high as laughter. Mine is if you listen. That's all I want you to do at this point. Is people get so angry at comedy at this point that if you touch on any issue that they find sacred and they get mad at you, I just want you to listen so that you understand. You understand why the joke is funny at this point. It might not get people to laugh at, especially when it's social or political. People have these sacred cows in what they believe in, and if
Sacred cows?
Yeah. And I think comedy is one of those art forms that has no sacred cows. Everything is on the table, and it's how you choose to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, and who the punchline of the joke is. And you can make something high-minded and not take the low-hanging fruit route, and that's really difficult. So for me, if you're willing to listen and maybe not get offended and try to have a conversation about it later, that's all I'm looking for at this point.
And I think to some degree, all of you are, I mean, really, this is your profession. You're all professionals in this field. So how do you get from maybe hobbyist or armchair comedian to professional success in comedy?
How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this. Like, I went to school for theater. When I was graduating from Duquesne, my mentor was like, "You're a character actress, so you know, you're not going to work for 25 years. We need a backup plan for you, kid." And he was like, "You won a bunch of playwriting contests. What if you tried stand-up comedy? You're really funny." Never what I wanted to do. I did it. I'm a self-hating comedian. I don't like it as a form of any art. I feel like it's the most least dignified art in the world. I mean it. Like in theater, if you're working on a new show, rehearsals are closed. When you're working on new material, you have to do it in front of a bunch of other comedians who aren't listening or bitter that you're funnier than them. So they're just mean mugging you the whole time. How is that dignified? I was just booked at a club this last weekend. The club owner was like, "And I'm going to give you a hotel." It wasn't a hotel. It was a hostel, or as I like to call it, a murder house. I slept in my car, and he felt that was reasonable. I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm a human with dignity. I need it. So I loathe comedy. Just know that. I'm compulsive to do it. Where are we going? I don't even remember what the question was. Just PTSD rage about what I do for a living.
How have you succeeded in
How have I succeeded?
Well, the car, I know that.
I'm still living. That's how I've succeeded. I have not let it get to me to the point that I went, "Bye-bye, I'm going for a swim and never coming back." So, guys, I'm very efficient.
So far, success in comedy is basically made up of people listening to you and staying alive.
Real low right now.
Anyone can do it.
I keep it real, folks. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
But I sense, Jim, that you may have a rebuttal to comedy maybe being a low art form or not an art form.
Oh, I think has its artistic moments, absolutely. I mean, comedy is usually based in someone else's pain. When you're doing a play, or a farce, it's awful for the people doing it. It's funny to watch it because it's not you. Or your grandmother.
Comedy is tragedy plus time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's compressed, so it's awful. Hamlet has a lot of laughs in it. Except everybody dies in the end.
Hilarious.
Jokey stuff.
Everyone's dead.
To be or not to be. Now, I have a director friend who always says, no matter what the performance, what the play is, if I can get the audience to laugh in the first 5 minutes, I know I can get them to cry at the end. Oh. Because it's that compression of emotion. If I can get somebody to laugh at something in the play or in doing something, I know I can get them to cry. Because they've already released an emotion, a response.
I just want to add that I feel a lot of people that write drama sort of forget this because they're like, "I'm writing something serious. It's about my mother's transition from cancer to death. And I'm writing something very serious and I have to be," but if you want people to sympathize with those characters, you have to work in humor. If you're a screenwriter or a playwright or even writing a short story, you have to give people, to identify with this person, and laughter is a really good way.
And behavior is funny.
And I feel like there are a lot of people that, they write serious stuff, but I always think of the example of a movie, In the Bedroom.
Oh, I love it.
It's a great movie, and it's about the death of this couple's son, okay? But there's a moment where the couple finally deal with each other. The husband and wife blame each other for their child's death. And they finally start dealing with it, and the doorbell rings, and it's like a Girl Scout cookie, and the guy's like, "I'm in the middle of something." "Oh wait, how much are those?" And he buys some Girl Scout cookies or candy bars or whatever, takes the money, closes the door, goes back and starts arguing with his wife. It's a really realistic moment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of humor in realism too,
It's one of those writing sort of tricks, I think, that in most people's behavior, And mostly we don't pick up on it. But if you're the recipient of terrible news, absolutely dreadful news, people tend to laugh.
Who are you hanging out with?
It's a very odd behavioral tick. You tend to laugh at bad news because it's a reaction. Your wife is dead. What? What? That's ridiculous.
That's
And
how
then
it is. Yeah.
you translate it. When people get the best news of their lives, they'll usually burst into tears.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Carnegie Screenwriters Fade In, our special series, The Art of Comedy, a panel discussion. I'm Mike Buzzelli, and we'll see you for the next episode.